Do you ever wonder why it feels so hard to start studying? And maybe it's even harder to just not give up after 15 minutes? Well, the reason for this is because you're a filthy dopamine junkie. A lot of people probably start their weekend like this. You wake up, you browse Instagram, you go through Reddit, you scroll TikTok, watch some YouTube videos, level up your Clash of Clans base, and then you decide to eat breakfast. You have a fork in one hand and a freaking phone in the other. And once you're done eating, you say, I'm gonna watch an episode of Attack on Titan, and then I'll get to my homework, and then I'll get to my chores. And then you realize you can't just watch one episode of Attack on Titan. You just have to know what happens. And those habits are massive dopamine spikes, and that is your problem. Okay, so let's back up a little bit. What is dopamine? So the quickest explanation that I can give you is that dopamine is what sways the desires and motivations in your brain. Every day, you start at some baseline dopamine level when you wake up. That means your mind is not stimulated. And every time your brain anticipates or experiences something new, something pleasurable, or a reward, you get an increase in dopamine. And that's why reels and shorts are so freaking addicting. You get so much content in such a short period of time. And when you experience something that gives fast dopamine, you start to build a habit of wanting to do it even more. And everything else you do starts to pale in comparison. Like studying. No one's going to say studying is more fun than watching reels on Instagram. And the problem is when you stop doing these things, when you put down your phone, you just don't go back to some baseline level that you woke up with. You actually dip below your baseline. So that means you feel even more demotivated to do anything, like studying. So your brain is kind of comparing what it just finished doing to what you're doing now. So let's take a look at this graph. You wake up and you're at some baseline. And what do? You hop on TikTok. And then you just have a massive dopamine spike. And that spike will only go up with the more content you watch. And then you said, okay, it's time to eat some breakfast. So your dopamine might drop a little bit. But since it dropped, that means that you need to watch something while you eat. Your dopamine needs to go back up to what you just compared it to. So you start scrolling through TikTok as you eat breakfast. So then you decide to put away the dishes and sit down. That means your dopamine starts to fall a little bit. Now, you don't want to study right now. You just finished eating. You just went through Instagram. You just scrolled through TikTok. Work sounds terrible. Why would you want to do that? That's because you're comparing your dopamine high to something that you know will be a dopamine low. So what do? You start streaming something, and you get hooked, and you watch the next episode, and an episode after that, and the episode after that. And so you have high dopamine for a long period of time. And then you finally decide to get off your butt and go to studying. Well, guess what? You just dropped your dopamine like crazy, well beneath your baseline, and way, way less than what you just experienced. And so maybe you can study for 20 minutes. But you're coming off that dopamine spike, and you get really, really bored really, really fast. So what do? You whip out your phone, you goof off some more, and then bam, you have another dopamine spike. And you just keep doing this for the whole day, and you just keep putting everything off until you run out of time and it's time to go to bed. So what I'm trying to say is that since you're so addicted to dopamine, you stop being productive, and you stop being productive fast. Okay, so what do you do about this? How do you fix this? Well, the short and simple answer is just lock in. Just lock in when you wake up and just goof off when you're done. Why is that any different? Well, let's look at this schedule instead. When you wake up, your brain kind of hits this mini reset. Your dopamine levels are unstimulated. You're at your baseline. There's nothing to really compare to what you're doing right now. You get straight to studying. And let's say that you finally solved a hard problem. You get a little dopamine spike. You feel good about yourself that you just did something difficult. So you feel a little more motivated to study. And then your mind feels a little more stimulated and in tune with what you're doing. You know you're doing something good for yourself, so you get a little bit more dopamine. And you get this steady increase in dopamine, meaning you get more and more focused and more motivated. So you will naturally just study for longer. And if you reward yourself at the end of the day, when you're done with your study session, that means your dopamine level only went up consistently throughout the day. Finally get to end the day where your dopamine is at the highest. So basically what I'm trying to say is that there's something called too much stimulation. And that can hurt you if you don't keep it in check. So the best way to be productive and to keep studying is to just reward yourself at the end.